to get in the flesh on Combot. We're going to go the way.
就推動啦！
Oh my God! That's going to hurt. Grab the milk, Kenny.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody and welcome to another news episode of the Combot Collective, bringing you everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from BattleBots to the live circuit, from heavyweight class to the Fleetweight class. And last time we brought you news here on TCC, we discussed some of the biggest news in the world of robot combat that dropped this year, and that is that RoboGames is back, and its numerous non-robot combat competitions like line following, bot bartending, sumo, BotHockey, among many others are present. But what we're here to talk about, of course, are the Combot classes. I mean, it is literally in our name here. As we discussed in our last episode, during April 2023, RoboGames will be running their two arenas in the small arena, of course, Fairyweight, Antweight, and Beetleweight action, and in the signature big arena, lightweight, middleweight, and TCC ranked heavyweight competition over there. And in all, between the non-combat and the combat classes, we have seen 80 robots sign up for RoboGames so far, happening in Pleasanton, California. As today we begin a two-part series discussing some of the notable entries from every class that have jumped on early to sign up for RoboGames 2023, and we have some very exciting names to talk about over these next couple of videos. This episode will primarily be discussing all three of the small bots classes, plus the 120-pound middleweight class, which of course features a slew of RoboGames regulars and BattleBots teams, as well as the 3-pound class, as this will be the first 3-pound event RoboGames will be hosting since the big bust of MRCA and Norwalk Havoc entering the scene, really blowing up the sport. BuckleBots as well. Maybe we can see some British robots coming into here. But yes, quite a few names that are going to be very familiar to our Norwalk Havoc fans here. Now, before we jump into these Fairyweights, Antweights, Beetleweights, and Middleweights, it is worth noting, I gotta keep saying this will all be subject to change. I mean, just look at our Robotica videos. We addressed the signups of robots like Dropkick and Claw Viper and those, and for their own personal reasons, both of those robots were not able to make it to Robotica. So, I did say this in our last video, but I do really anticipate probably about 30 to 50% of the robots we already see signing up early, probably pulling out at some point, because we are over 200 days away from this thing actually happening, so plenty of time for something to go down, something to change here. But that being said, you gotta start the hype train, you gotta get the momentum going somewhere, so without further ado, let's break down 4 of these robot classes and the biggest names within them. Now, as we start with the 150-gram Fleetweight class, if you did catch my Amidst the Havoc live streams, I did confess that out of all the robot combat classes, Fleetweight is definitely one I've only recently started following since I started doing Combot Collective. So I've been following it for a little bit. You know, I've kept up with some of the recent events if you've seen the event breakdowns, but I am not the quickest to know some of these heavy hitters in the Fleetweight class, so I do apologize. Some of these machines are still relative unknown for me. That being said, one of the fun robots you may recognize in this bracket is from one of the old Scorpius vlog videos, and that is Dust Bunny. I believe this is a Bot Bash party robot that has signed up for this bracket, one of the more unique ones that they have. I am eager to see this one in action. And speaking of the Scorpius crew, they are going to be once again joined by Team Malice, as they are bringing Mini Malice to this event, which, as the name implies, is a 150-gram version of the 2022 BattleBots All-Star. And a robot we are going to be talking a little bit about in our next video, something to look forward to there. But lastly, in this sparse weight class, we have our only European team signed up for RoboGames thus far, as Team Box of Ominous fame hope to add to the solid year they've already had thus far with Ominous, bringing a 2-wheel drive vertical spinner named DBA to this tournament. In the Antweight class, though, we have a few more robots that are a bit more recognizable, as this bracket is a little bit more loaded. Let's start with some of the teams we've discussed in the Fleetweight class, as Team Scorpius and Malice are back at it again with the Bomb and Andrews Malice respectively, presumably Andrews Malice. Just like OG Malice and Mini Malice is a 2-wheel drive horizontal spinner, but I do want to say from the videos I've seen of this robot, it does lean a little bit more towards the Tombstone side than the Malice side, but it will definitely be a threat nonetheless. Meanwhile, talking about something a bit less modern, we have the revered old-school 1-pounder VDD from Team Think Tank. This is a 2-decade-old Antweight where the VD line of robots originated from. This robot was supposed to be at Windy City Showdown back in June, but did have to pull out. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing it in action here. And speaking of MRCA, Santana Starks from Team Shreddit is bringing RoboBot, a two-wheel drive vertical spinner we did see at Windy City Showdown that is now competing at RoboGames and is so far the only Team Shreddit 1-pounder represented. Another robot that we talked about quite a bit in past rundown videos, going back to the April rundown video, will be Phantom Assault, a horizontal spinner which very much impressed during Scuffle of the Swamp at the University of Florida, placing in the top 3 as it now prepares for its California debut. And lastly, we have a whole array of crazy designs and unique weaponry in this class that's worth noting. Robots like Ubersoft from Robotics, a team that has been fairly active in the live event scene lately, along with the tried and true design of Launchpad McWhack, and even Madiator from Team Jester with a bold but fun Flamingor, a Canadian Flamingo Axebot. That is a combination of words right there, isn't it? Now, the biggest bracket in this video in terms of entry numbers is by far the Beetleweight class, and in fact, it is right now the largest bracket in terms of signed up robots in the entire RoboGames event thus far, with a full bracket, an astounding 32 robots signed up already, with loads more in the waiting list. This was to be expected, as I mentioned earlier. Since the shutdown of RoboGames back in 2018, we have seen Bugglebots, Robotica, MRCA, Norwalk Havoc, the things happening in Florida, all sorts of crazy events opening up and going down. This Beetleweight scene has prospered, just shot up exponentially since RoboGames went down. And we are seeing robots from all those aforementioned places and everywhere in between on this bracket here. We start discussing the Beetleweight entrance by talking about what may be the most prominent faction in the 3-pound class right now. That is, of course, Team Shreddit. You've seen them so much in NHRL, and from their leader Evan Arias to friend of TCC Tony D'Ambrosio to the aforementioned Santana Starks, 3-pound action has always been Team Shreddit's bread and butter, and you can see it here as we have a murderer's row of robots. We have Shreddit Bro, Immortal Crixus, and of course one of my favorites, Blackbird. All 3 of these robots will be bracket favorites, and all 3 of these robots will also have a very common rival in Calvin Eba's Lynx, California's top 3-pounder. Now, all the way back in April, Calvin Eba won the NHRL April event, announced that the 2022 December finals for Norwalk Havoc would be Lynx's final event. But of course, that was way before RoboGames would make this announcement that they are coming back. So, who can blame Calvin Eba for trying to bring this robot to one more major event? I mean, you can't miss RoboGames, especially with a robot of its caliber. Another robot you would recognize from the Norwalk area would be the very powerful Sawbot and former NHRL finalist Samurai. And while down in Texas, the newest member of BNS Robotics, Pearl Gray, is intending to bring their signature purple powerhouse data collector, who has been one of the most consistent and one of the most active Beetleweights we have seen over the last few months. Another well-traveled robot and a former NHRL finalist is the huge style undercutter Billy from Team Malabots. This robot has a whole lineage of success with its 12-pound counterpart Bobby racking up some event wins recently, most notably Robot Ruckus back in November. But come April, it will be the smaller but older brother trying to get its first RoboGames medal. Now, our last main robots signed up, we have a bunch of relatively new robots in the world of robot combat we have discussed here, but one I do want to cover is a true OG of the Beetleweight class and is very familiar with RoboGames. Of course, I'm talking about the former RoboGames medalist, Mondo Bizarro. We've seen this classic two-wheel drive drum bot fight since the early 2010s, competing at events like Motorama, Robotica, NHRL, and of course RoboGames, as it now comes back to RoboGames yet again, looking to be a proven veteran amongst all these newer machines yet again. And lastly, one robot that is currently in the waitlist that I would be very surprised to not see at RoboGames, knowing this driver's consistency, and shoot, it may very well be on the bracket now given how quick robots have been dropping out and coming in. We're of course talking about the consistent veteran Robert Runn and his durable and proven lifter, the NHRL May champion, Crashfest. That's right, Crashfest should be back for combat yet again, even if it takes till April after the destructive beating it took from Depth Charge during that fantastic rumble we saw in NHRL July. If it does show up, this will be the most feared control bot in a deadly valley of spinners competing at RoboGames 2023. It will be very fascinating to see how Robert Runn and Crashfest do in this brand new environment. Now let's take a 117-pound jump here and cap off the first half of these RoboGames signees as we discuss some of the middleweight entries here. The first robot which signed up for this class is a very fitting one, as Ray Billings' Hardcore Robotics, you know them well, kicked it off by signing up with the team's signature middleweight, Mortician. The Mortician has been a true OG of RoboGames, competing since RoboGames 2004 and started off as a traditional horizontal spinner that would eventually mend into a tombstone tile HS that we know and love today. Mortician would start its career off strong with back-to-back gold medals at its first 2 RoboGames events, but would retire in 2013, so this is going to be Mortician's very first event in pretty much exactly a decade. This is going to be very interesting to see. Another true OG of the sport is VD5 from Team Think Tank, the 120-pound version of the aforementioned 1-pound VDD, and the smaller version of the heavyweight VD6, which some people remember from the BattleBots 2009 championship. VD5 debuted at RoboGames 2009 and would go on to take the silver medal at that event, and has been one of the most potent 120-pound vertical spinners in the sport's recent history. One vertical spinner though that has outclassed the late 2000s era of vertical spinners comes from the Brazilian juggernauts of Uriah of Black Dragon fame, who have always been known to go for the hunt, sweeping every RoboGames gold medal possible. Their signature middleweight they're bringing along is General, who's debuted the same year Mortician finally retired back in 2013. Since its debut, it has reached the finals in 4 of its 5 career RoboGames outings, with the last 2 appearances in 2017 and 2018 being a gold medal. So General is coming into this event as our 2-time defending middleweight champion. This is a serious robot to watch right here. A less notable vert from a very notable team is Cat Kong, the signature middleweight from the Mad Catter crew of Team Bad Kitty. It's your classic 2-wheel drive, cute but not so cuddly vertical spinner, which made its debut at RoboGames 2017. This will be the robot's 3rd RoboGames. And with Lynx and Mad Catter signed up for their respective classes, it is expected that Mad Catter's captain, Martin Mason, and the driver, Calvin Eva, will be at the helm of this robot. You gotta watch out for these guys, they may end up taking it this year. Speeding it up here, 3 RoboGames regulars you can always expect at these events have signed up, and Team RoboMasters Who's Your Daddy Now, Sierra College's Wolverine, and the revered Fast Electric Robots Doom on You. Going through these quickly, Who's Your Daddy Now is the 120-pound version of the team's signature heavyweight Raging Scotsman, and the team's first middleweight hedgebot, Who's Your Daddy, debuted back in 2005, but this new version of Who's Your Daddy made its debut in RoboGames 2016. Sierra College has dabbled in heavyweight action before with Puck, who is right now a reserve in heavyweight class, but their signature robot is most definitely their similarly built 2-wheel drive horizontal spinner Wolverine. It's been a RoboGames regular since 2011, has not missed one since, even managing a top 4 placement in 2012 and a top 8 placement in 2015. And the lastly of these 3 veterans is Doom on You from Fast Electric Robots in the Vasquez family, who is of course known for Defender and the 2020 BattleBots finalist Whiplash. Before those 2 robots though came the 120-pounder Doom on You, who debuted in 2005 at various RoboGames and RFL events and has been competing since, but would go under a full rebrand in 2017, becoming your traditional 4-wheel drive vertical spinner. And that version will likely be the one we'll see at RoboGames 2023. Now let's talk about a couple international robots here. As one nation TCC loves talking about, it's been supported on both ends, is the Indian scene. And India runs the middleweight class as pretty much their largest class. That's pretty much their heavyweight class over there. You'll always see it at the major events like IIT Tech Fest. So you can definitely expect a couple of solid Indian robots competing at this event. Teams like Blankabots, teams like Team Xenon, as the latter of those teams have signed up. That's right, Team Xenon, who placed 2nd at IIT Tech Fest earlier on in the year, is going to be bringing their 2-wheel drive vertical spinner Maharana. Now, I might be mistaken, but I don't believe Maharana was the robot that they brought to the 120-pound class at the IIT Tech Fest event we were just talking about. But so maybe this is a difference in rotation. But we do know they have been juggernauts recently in the featherweight class over there. So it seems like a similarly built robot compared to something else that they've done prior with that IIT Tech Fest robot. This machine looks very promising. On the lesser side of known teams though, we have Team Pricks also coming from India, who seem fairly confident because they have entered multiple weight classes at this RoboGames. Here in the 120-pound division though, they have brought a traditional design for India, being your classic 2-wheel drive drum bot named Zucifer, a red, gold, and silver machine that looks very much like a classic Minotaur style robot. Now the last 2 robots I saved to talk about for the weight class in the video here are 2 very exciting teams in terms of their name, but the robots, complete unknowns. We don't even know what they look like right now. One of these are signed up, one of these are reserved, so we'll go ahead and start with the robot that is currently signed up for the bracket. They are a true OG of the sport and a veteran of RoboGames themselves, going back to RoboGames 2017 with Rampage. We're of course talking about Christian Karlberg and C2 Robotics. The aforementioned Rampage, of course, was a middleweight version of Overkill, one of the most successful robots in this Comedy Central era of BattleBots, one of the faces of the sport and arguably the face of C2 Robotics. But we're not seeing Rampage in this event, it looks like. Now, recently on another podcast named Outside the Box, very good podcast, you should check it out, we would see Christian Carlberg state that he is nowhere near any intention of retiring. Jason Bardis maybe, some of the other judges maybe, but not Christian Carlberg. He's an OG and he's still staying in the sport here. He talked about how he can't retire. He has so many ideas that he just wants to get out there. He wants to put out in the arena because he wants to see how they perform. And I love to see it because we know, just go back to some of the early stuff he made in the Robot Wars days with the machines with legs, and Minion, who apparently was going to be a walker originally, all sorts of these crazy designs, even to today with robots like, you know, Overdrive, like Rampage, like Mecha Rampage, like the Yeti, who we've recently seen rebuilt with Christian Carlberg's help. He makes such beautiful robots, him and his whole team. This time though, he's bringing a robot named Floorjack, which, like I said, we don't have a picture of, literally just the name, and it's a complete mystery, but given the name, maybe a lifter. All we know is, like I said, with it being Christian Carlberg's work, it's probably going to be a pretty fantastic robot, but only time will tell on this one. You should probably watch out for what Floorjack may end up becoming. I know I certainly will be. And finally, in the reserve class, it's an exciting one. We have none other than the defending BattleBots champions, Seems Reasonable Robotics. Seems reasonable, the events in their home state. They are applying with a robot named Twins? That's it. That's all we know about the robot. Its name is Twins. One can only assume that this is going to be a cluster bot, and knowing Aaron Hell, Ginger Schmidt, that whole crew over there at Seems Reasonable Robotics, these are going to be two robots who are going to be spectacular looking. They're going to be beautifully designed. They're going to be well driven. They're going to be destructive, and they're probably going to be pretty damn adorable. Let's give it to them. They all have those cute ass eyes. So, a lot to look forward here. Seems Reasonable Robotics. They also have something reserved in the heavyweight class, which we're going to talk about in the next video. Something to look forward to there. But that's all the big names we have right now in the middleweight class. So that's going to wrap it up for part one of these initial RoboGames reveal / breakdowns of some of the robots that have signed up early on. Like I said, this is subject to change, of course. Some of these robots are probably not going to end up making it to the RoboGames arena for one reason or another. And these aren't all the robots that are signed up. We have a huge number, of course. Like I said, 32 in the Beetleweight class, probably about 15 or 16 right now in the Middleweight class, and tons in the Antweight and Fleetweight class on their own. So I'm just running over here some of the more unique names, some of the more memorable names, some of the names that are going to excite fans. Something to sell a couple tickets for RoboGames here, because there's some awesome robots in this bracket. You know, teams that you recognize, some old heads. We have some really old school robots even making a return. There's a middleweight named Mozart, which hasn't competed since like 05, 07. That's going to be an interesting story to follow. But yeah, next time I'm on here, we're going to be talking about the lightweight class and the heavyweight class. Heavyweight class especially, you guys are going to want to tune in for that one, because we got BattleBots teams, we got RoboGames regulars, we got BattleBots signees, people who are trying to get into BattleBots 2023 and beyond. We have so many crazy machines in this lineup. It's going to be a full 32 robot bracket, which is going to be insane. This is going to be something like the Comedy Central era of BattleBots potentially. I am so stoked to talk about some of these robots. Oh my goodness, you're going to have to check out that one, but I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching the Combot Collective. Once again, if you do have a RoboGames robot that I didn't talk about, I'm going to be running over more of these in the coming months. I plan to be doing at least one RoboGames rundown news video once a month, maybe a little bit distant, once a month and a half. I don't know yet. Those videos will be talking about what robots have signed up and what robots have pulled out pretty much. It's going to be pretty solid. It'll keep everyone up to date heading into the month of April. And you know we're going to be all over this RoboGames event. Maybe we'll have to do an Amidst the Havoc for that as well. But that's a bit far in the future. We'll get there when we get there, huh? But yes, thank you so much for watching the Combot Collective. I am Sterling Brown. You can find me on Instagram at SterlingTXTG. You can find the Combot Collective on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can join us on Discord. That's where all of our video news drop first. You can, of course, subscribe to us, give us a like and a comment. We love all the support that you can give us here. Any constructive criticism, we always are trying to get it better here at the Combot Collective. Thank you so much for watching this RoboGames news breakdown, and we will see you during the next one.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.